Hello friend, hope you're doing well. Today I'll be updating my journal with the books I read in July. This is going to be a chatty one and I know some of you enjoy these, so grab a drink or your journal and let me keep you company for a bit. I'm starting with cutting out the book covers I printed. I used Canva to arrange the images and the Kodak Mini 2 Retro to print them out. One reason I enjoy journaling about books is because I love these tiny book covers. Now I'm making a title page which has the month and an overview of the books that I read. In July, I finished 5 books: Sleepaway Girls, Normal People, Days at the Morisaki Bookshop, Never Been Better, and Pride and Prejudice. I decided to go with a green and yellow theme, which to me is a lively, summery color combination and somewhat matched the books on the right side. To be honest, I didn't like the title page much while I was making it, but I'm glad that I didn't overthink the decoration to try to fix it. I still don't love it, but I think that's okay. For how I usually journal about these books, I start with sticking the book covers at the top left corner and then stamping the date finished and my rating out of 5 underneath. Then, in the space next to that, I write the title of the book, the author, and then really short thoughts and reactions for the book. Once the page is filled, I'll usually fill in some of the extra space with stickers. I think it's a pretty simple system, but it's still really cute. Now I'll talk about my thoughts on these books. The first book is Sleepaway Girls, which is written by Jen Kalanita. This is a very nostalgic book for me since I used to read it every summer when I was younger because I really liked the idea of going to overnight summer camp. I wanted to see if I would enjoy it as much as I did then, and surprisingly, I still found it quite good. The book follows Sam, who is going to summer camp as a counselor in training to escape her best friend and her best friend's boyfriend. At the camp, she has to deal with a mean girl and crushes, but also finds a great group of friends who call themselves the Sleepaway Girls. The summer camp vibes in this book are great with strong female friendships, fun activities, and drama. While it is a light read, I appreciate the depth and care that went into writing the characters. The main character feels like a fully fleshed out person who has interests and a personality, and slowly grows to become more confident in herself. There are definitely a few cliches, but I think it handles it well. For example, there's a mean girl, but you get time to understand her a bit better and she gets a bit of a redemption arc. Another cliche is a love triangle, but despite hating love triangles, I thought it was handled well and the romance is really cute. Finally, reflecting on this book from an older perspective, I think one of the main messages in the book is the importance of communication. While there was some drama, nothing felt like it dragged on unnecessarily long, and once characters properly talked with each other, their issues were resolved or at least improved. The next book I have on this page is Normal People by Sally Rooney. I feel like most people have read or at least heard of this book before. I didn't like this one too much, and I think it's mostly because I couldn't relate to the characters. For anyone who doesn't know, the book is about Connell and Marianne, who have an on and off relationship throughout high school and university. They have their own individual issues to sort out, which often cause them to stay apart, but something about their connection always brings them back together. There were certain aspects of their struggles that I could relate to, and other things that I sympathized with, but there was so much miscommunication and I could not quite agree with most of the decisions they made. I understand that the point is that they make bad decisions, but it frustrated me how little they seemed to grow and change. There was potential for interesting discussions of class, abuse, mental illness, and more, but I never felt that it went far enough, or maybe it was just too subtle for me to notice. I don't necessarily think this was a bad book, but it definitely wasn't for me. This next book is a short and cozy book. It's called Days at the Morisaki Bookshop and is by Satoshi Yagusawa. It follows Takako, a woman who quits her office job to work and live in her uncle's bookshop after finding out her boyfriend decides to marry someone else. In the bookshop, she discovers a love for reading and an appreciation for the neighborhood and people within it. The first half was mostly about Takako and the bookshop, while the second half is more about her uncle and aunt. It was a quick read and felt very peaceful and gentle. I don't have too much to say about this one because not much happens or gets explored too deeply, so it's a little forgettable. That said, I remember the comfort I felt from reading it, and living atop an old bookshop sounds really ideal to me. Next is Never Been Better by Leanne Toshiko Simpson. I was really excited to read this one because it was released this year in 2024 and was written by a local author. This book is about Dee, who goes with her sister to a resort wedding for her two best friends, Matt and Misa. It gets complicated because they have to somewhat keep it a secret that they all met when they were in a psych ward together, and also that Dee is in love with Matt. This is a book about mental health and how that affects your relationships and life as a whole. All the relationships in this are so messy, but somehow, rather than being annoying, it comforted me during a time in my life that was also quite a mess. I enjoyed the complicated relationships and mental health stuff better than in normal people because the characters actively try to get better, even if it doesn't always really work. That's another thing that was great in this book. It showed how progress is not linear and that there is no perfect solution. All you can do is keep trying every day to be better than the last. On top of the mental health representation, I really liked how Asian and queer characters were added in a very normal way. A really cute aspect of the book is that the beginning of each chapter has a song that goes along with it. The last book I have here is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I'm so happy to have finally finished this book. I tried reading it many times in the past and couldn't really get into it, but this time I finished it and ended up really enjoying it. It gets its own special page because I liked it so much, and I also wanted to do some calligraphy. The book is set in the Regency era and follows Elizabeth and her relationship with Darcy. At first they don't get along, but they slowly grow to understand each other better. There's also a bunch of other stuff in the peripheral, like many marriage offers thrown around by and for various people, her many sisters and their situations with other characters, and a lot of people going to other people's houses. Despite so little important things actually happening, there's so much said in this book about society at the time. I'm sure that there are many great analyses for this book, but the theme that stood out to me the most was the expectations of what women should do and how they should act. It's why I love Elizabeth so much. She's unafraid to speak her mind and act in slightly unacceptable but practical ways. She's smart and witty and kind. The language was the main reason I had trouble with the book initially, but after a while I got used to it and was able to pick up on the tone and humor. Since I enjoyed it so much, I really want to make my way through all of her books someday. There is something quite special in this book, and I highly recommend it to everyone. That is all for the books I read in July. I hope that I have entertained you for a little and that maybe you found something interesting to read. See you in the next one!